Cognitive development in infancy. Cognition is a broad and inclusive concept that refers to the mental activities involved in the acquisition, processing, organization, and use of knowledge. The major process under the term cognition includes detecting, interpreting, classifying, and remembering information, evaluating ideas, interfering principles, and detecting rules, imagining possibilities, generating and strategies, fantasizing, and dreaming. At the infancy period, children develop many elements of abilities to think and to understand the world around them. Infants have remarkably competent organism even at the first day of life. The newborn child is ready to the basic sensation of our species. They can see, hear, and smell, and they are sensitive to pain, touch, and changes in bodily position. Infants are not only growing physically during the first 2 years of life, but also they are growing cognitively, that is, mentally. Every day they interact with different persons and learn about their environment and pathways between nerve cells, both within their brains and between their brains and bodies. Cognitive change and development is a little harder to determine as clearly. Therefore, much about what experts know about mental and cognitive development is based on the careful observation of developmental theories such as Piaget's theory of cognitive development and Erickson's psychosocial stages. According to Piaget's theory, infants interact with their environment entirely through reflexive behaviors. They do not think about what they are going to do, but rather follow their instincts and involuntary reactions to get what they need, such as food, air, and attention. Piaget believed that as children begin to grow and learn about their environment through their senses, they begin to engage in intentional, goal directed behaviors. Jean Piaget was the most influential developmental psychologist of the 20th century. The work of cognition has held center stage in child developmental research since 1960. His theory of cognitive growth and change is original, comprehensive, integrative, and elegant. He recorded infants' and children's spontaneous activities and presented problems of thousands of children and adolescents. His ideas have been the source of many research studies. In Piaget's theory, knowledge is assumed to have a specific goal or purpose to aid the person in adapting to the environment. The child does not receive information passively, and thoughts are not simply the product of teaching by others. Nor is the cognitive progress seen as primarily a product of maturation of a brain. Knowledge is acquired and thought process become more complex and efficient as a consequence of the maturing child's interaction with the world. The individual is active, curious, and inventive throughout the life cycle. The theory of cognitive development is a comprehensive theory about the nature and development of human intelligence. It deals with the nature of knowledge itself and how humans come gradually to acquire it, construct it, and use it. Moreover, Piaget claims that cognitive development is at the center of human organism and language is contingent on cognitive development. Piaget considered cognitive development in terms of stages. He mentioned 4 stages in cognitive development. That is 1. Sensory motor stage, that is from birth to 2 years, pre-operational stage, that is from 2 to 7 years, concrete operational stage, 7 to 11 years, and 4 is formal operational stage, that is 11 to 15 years. Let us take up these stages one by one and discuss. Stage 1. Sensory motor stage, that is from birth to 2 years. The first stage is the sensory motor stage, which lasts from birth to about 2 years old. The infant uses his or her senses and motor abilities to understand the world, beginning with reflexes and ending with complex combination of sensory motor skills. This stage can be divided into 6 separate substages. Reflexes, that is from birth to 1 month. The child understands the environment purely through inborn reflex such as sucking and looking. Second is primary circular reactions 1 to 4 months. Between 1 and 4 months, the child works on an action of his own which serves as a stimulus to which it responds with the same action and round we go. Third is secondary circular reaction. that is from 4 to 8 months, the child becomes more focused on the world and begins to intentionally repeat an action in order to trigger a response in the environment. 4 is coordination of secondary reactions, that is from 8 to 12 months. They develop certain focus on the demand object, response become more coordinated and complex. 5. Tertiary circular reactions, that is 12 to 24 months. Children begin a period of trial and error experimentation during this substage. And last and sixth one is early representational thought. Children begin to develop symbols to represent events or objects in the world in the final sensory motor substage. Stage 2. It is pre-operational stage. This stage lasts from around age 2 until about age 7. Your toddler hits the pre-operational stage between 18 to 24 months when they start to talk. As they build up their experiences of the world around them, they move toward the stage where they can use logical thought and imagine things. The characteristics of pre-operational stages are: your charming toddler is growing up. Want to put a name to what you're seeing? Here's a list of main characteristics of this stage of development. Egocentrism. You have probably noticed that your child thinks of one thing, that is themselves. That's perfectly normal for this developmental stage. They want that drink now, not after you have finished throwing the laundry into the dryer. Egocentrism also means that your child assumes that you see, hear, and feel the same things they do. But hang in there, because by the time they hit 4 years, give or take, they will be able to understand something from your point of view. Centration. This is the tendency to focus on only one aspect of a situation at a time. Try lining up two rows of paper clips in such a way that a row of 5 paper clip is longer than the row of 7 paper clips. Ask your young child to point to the row that has more paper clips, and he or she will be able to point to the row of 5. This is because they are focusing on one aspect only, the length, and can't manipulate two, that is length and numbers. As your little one grows, they will develop the ability to decenter. Conservation. Conservation is related to centration. It's the understanding that the quantity stays the same even if you change the size, shape, or container in it. Piggets found that most children can't understand the concept before they are 5 years old. Curious? Try it out yourself. Pour equal amounts of juices into two identical disposable cups. Then pour one cup into a tall, thin cup and ask your child to choose the cup that contains more. Chances are they will point to the tall, thin cup. Parallel play. At the beginning of this stage, you will notice that your child plays alongside other children but not with them. Don't worry, this doesn't mean your little one is antisocial by any means. They are simply absorbed in their own world. Although your kiddo may be talking, they are using their speech to express what they see, feel, and need. They don't yet realize that speech is a tool to become social. Symbolic representation. During the early pre-operational period, between 2 and 3 years old, your child will begin to realize that words and objects are symbols for something else. Watch how excited they become when they say mommy and see you melting. Let's pretend. As your child develops within this stage, they will move from parallel playing to including other children in games. That's when let's pretend games can happen. According to Pigot's, children's pretend play helps them solidify the concepts that they are developing cognitively. Here's when your dining room chairs become a bus. Keep an eye out. You may need to referee when your child and their playmate fight over who is the driver and who is the passenger. Artificialism. Piaget defined this as the assumption that everything that exists have to be made by a sentient being, such as God or a human. This being is responsible for its quality and movements. In other words, in the eyes of your child, rain isn't a natural phenomenon. Someone is making it rain. Irreversibility. This is a stage where your child can't imagine that a sequence of events can be reversed to their starting point. When they zoom around the room with their arms outstretched because they are in a plane, Keep out of their way. If your little one bursts into tears because their playmate has lured away their imaginative puppy, you will have to try and sympathize with their pain. Role playing is also a thing at this stage. Your kiddo may pretend to be a daddy, mommy, teacher, or doctor, to name a few. Stage 3, Concrete Operational Stage. The concrete operational stage usually starts when your child hits 7 years old and lasts till they reach 11. Think of it as a transitional stage between the two earlier stages of development and the fourth stage. So, what's in store for you both over the next 4 years? Here's a list of the main characteristics of this pivotal stage of development. Just for fun, we have listed them in alphabetic orders. Classification. There are two parts of classification. One is sorting things into categories. Your child already grouped flowers and animals into two separate categories. At this stage, they can go one step further. They understand that they are subclasses within a group, like yellow and red flowers, or animals that fly and animals that swim. Conservation. This is understanding that something can stay the same in quantity even though it looks different. That ball of Play Doh is the same amount whether you squash it flat or roll it onto the ball. Decentration. This is tied to conservation. Your child needs to figure out decentration so that they can conserve correctly. It's all about concentrating on several factors at the same time. A row of 5 paper clips is a row of 5 paper clips, no matter how far apart you space them. At this stage, your child realizes this because they can manipulate number and length at the same time. Reversibility. This involves an understanding that action can be reversed, sort of like mental gymnastics. Here, your child can figure out that your car is an Audi is a car, and a car is a vehicle. Seriation. It's all about mentally sorting a group of things into some sort of order. Now your child can sort from the tallest to the shortest or thinnest to the widest. Sociocentricity. This is the characteristic that you have been waiting for. Your child is no longer egocentric and fully focused on themselves. They are able to understand that mom has her own thoughts, feelings, and timetable. Yes, mom wants to leave the park now, not after those last 5 rounds on the slide. Let's make the characteristics of this stage easy to understand. You pour a tall cup of soda into a shorter cup. Does your child peacefully accept the shorter cup? Probably yes. At this stage, they have figured out the amount in the first cup doesn't change just because the new cup is shorter than the first. You got it. This is about conservation, classification, and decentralization. Run Pigot's experiment. Show your child 4 red flowers and 2 white ones. Then ask them, are there more red flowers or more flowers? At 5-year-old, your child will probably say more red ones. But when they reach the concrete operational stage, they are able to decenter and focus on two things at once, number and class. Now they will realize that there is a class and a subclass and be able to answer more flowers. Your child is using the mechanism of both classification and decentralization. Sociocentricity. When you are not feeling well and are resting on the couch with your eyes closed, does your child bring your favorite blanket? At the concentrate operational stage, we are able to move beyond what they want and think about what someone else needs. Stage 4, the formal operational stage. The formal operational stage is the fourth and the final stage of Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. It begins at approximately age 12 and lasts into adulthood. At this point in development, thinking becomes much more sophisticated and advanced. Kids can think about abstract and theoretical concepts and use logic to come up with creative solutions to problems. Skills such as logical thought, deductive reasoning, and systematic planning also emerge during this stage. Linguistic development in infancy. Language development is a process starting early in human life. When a person begins to acquire language by learning it as it is spoken and by mimicry. Children's language development moves from simple to complex. Infants start without language. Yet by 4 months of age, babies can read lips and discriminate speech sounds. The language that infants speak is called babbling. Speech replaces gestures and babbling as a child starts communicating his desires and asks questions during 6 months period. Speech, symbolism, imitation of family members or others and morality are the most distinctive characteristics of infants. After few months' time, the infant use their name and personal pronouns I, me, or my. It represents the self-awareness and self-consciousness. Usually, language starts off as recall of simple words without associated meaning. But as children grow, words acquire meaning, with connections between words being formed. As a person gets older, new meanings and new associations are created and vocabulary increases as more words are learned. Infants use their bodies, vocal cries, and other pre-verbal vocalization to communicate their wants, needs, and dispositions. Even though most children begin to vocalize and eventually verbalize at various ages and at different rates, they learn their first language without conscious instruction from parents or caretakers. In fact, research has shown that the earliest learning begins in utero when the fetus can recognize the sound and speech patterns of his mother's voice. Language is acquired with amazing rapidity, particularly after children speak their first word, usually sometime around at the end of the first year. This can be understood during the months of 4 to 8 months. Child's language characteristics is babbling such as baba, dada, and gaga. At the age of 12 months, the infant first utters the understandable words such as mummy, dog, and yes. During 18 months, the language transforms into two-word combination such as mummy milk, my pencil, and drink juice. There are four main components of language development in children. Each component has its own appropriate developmental periods. Phonology involves the rules about the structure and sequence of speech sounds. From shortly after birth to around 1 year, the baby starts to make speech sounds. At around 2 months, the baby will engage in cooing, which mostly consists of vowel sounds. At around 4 months, cooing turns into babbling, which is a repetitive combination of consonant and vowel. Babies understand more than they are able to say. Semantics. Semantics consist of vocabulary and how concepts are expressed through words. From birth to 1 year, comprehension develops before production. There is about a 5-month lag in between the two. Babies have an innate presence to listen to their mother's voice. Babies can recognize familiar words and use pre-verbal gestures. From 1 to 2 years, vocabulary grows to several hundred words. There is a vocabulary spurt between 18 to 24 months, which includes fast mapping. Fast mapping is the baby's ability to learn a lot of new things quickly. The majority of the baby's new vocabulary consists of object words and action words. By 3 to 5 years, children usually have difficulty using words correctly. Children experience many problems such as underextensions, taking a general word and applying it specifically, and overextensions, taking a specific word and applying it too generally. However, children coin words to fill in for words not yet learned. For example, someone is a cooker rather than a chef because a child will not know what a chef is. Children also understand metaphors. Grammar. Grammar involves two parts. The first part is syntax. It refers to the rules in which words are arranged into sentence. The second is morphology. It refers to the use of grammatical markers. From 1 to 2 years, children start using telegraphic speech, which is two-word combination. Pragmatics involves the rules for appropriate and effective communication. The three skills involved in this include using language for greeting, demanding, etc. Changing language for taking differently, depending on who it is you are talking to. Following rules such as turn taking, staying on topic, etc. From birth to 1 year, babies can engage in joint attention. Babies also can engage in turn-taking activities. By 1 to 2 years, they can engage in conversational turn-taking and topic maintenance. The period of infancy covers approximately the first 2 weeks of life. There are five important characteristics in the infancy period. This is the shortest period of lifespan. It is the time of adjustment, a plateau in development and consists of hazards filled event in life. The hazards are divided into two types. First is physical hazard, such as unfavorable prenatal environment complication, the time of birth, multiple birth, pre and post maturity, and second is the psychological hazards, such as traditional beliefs about birth, helplessness, attitude of parents, etc. The infant has to do some adjustment in the outer life. Physical development refers by the physical growth and maturation. Psychosocial development is the development of a person's understanding of the environment they are living in and figuring out how that relates to them, their behavior, and others. To put it in even simpler terms, it is learning about yourself through your surrounding and other people. Erickson defines trust versus mistrust in infancy period. Other types of social behavior are also mentioned such as attachment, smiling, anxiety, and fear of stranger. Hope you all got an idea about infancy and the characteristic of infancy period. Thank you for watching it.